With you growing in this journalism space and learning more about the game and just seeing um, high school kids at these events and just the climate of sports, what do you think is next? What's the next trend? What's the next maybe issues the student athletes will face? What do you think is to come in the next few years?
I think it's what's really impressive to me is that this industry, long before any of us were born, it's a big industry, and there's still been more and more leagues coming out trying to work stuff out. I think there's going to be more opportunities out there for guys. XFL is going to try making a comeback. I think not just in football, but in all these sports, they're starting to make more leagues. So there's definitely more opportunities out there for people, which is a good thing. Once again, it's going to hurt some people who think they're going to have a chance and put all their eggs in that basket and not have a good fallback. But I definitely think that's a good thing. And just social media still, it's going to be something that's an issue when you're not used to being, when you're someone who goes from having like no one following you and you just saying what you say and then it coming back and canceling you years later, that's still something that's going to affect people because you know as much as it happens you never think, oh, it's going to happen to me. So you just go wandering in that direction and it gets you, and then you're just like, oh, but I didn't mean to. If you never put yourself in that position to begin with, it's a start. And you see what some of these kids like post, and nowadays they do a better job just because recruiters are using Twitter for everything, and it's been good. But sometimes you have that slip, and things just happen. But as far as what I see trending towards the future in terms of issues with the NCAA going to the name likeness stuff, I think you're going to see agents starting to approach guys at younger ages, which could hurt. Obviously, some of the top level athletes, uh, and I think that might be something to keep an eye on because I'm sure they're going to have ways to not have these agents start creeping in, but there's always those guys who just get around that stuff and start getting in someone's ear somehow. And once the name likeness stuff goes, you can just start feeding it through another organization and just tell the guy, once you graduate, go to the draft, come work with me. So we'll see what that stuff ends up being like. It's going to be very interesting because it's something so new. So I really wonder how they're going to really regulate it, what the restrictions and stuff are going to be, and how it affects recruiting in general.
I can see. I totally agree. And I can see kind of like what LaMelo did happening with football players a lot more frequently in the next 3 to 8 years, where you don't want to go to college. Oh, depending on how the likeness stuff goes and payment, whatever. If you don't like it, you can get a better offer. And if somebody who has a lot of money can create another league, like we talked about, maybe like a minor league or like an alternate league, like a prep league, you do that for a year or two, get paid, and then go to the NFL or CFL or whatever from there, and bypassing the whole college part. Um, I think that could be a very big thing.
I feel with this name likeness and stuff, I think it's going to be put on hold. And the reason I say that is because the NCAA football game is dropping. And when you add a game with everyone's image in it and you're not paying them, especially if you want to drop this law, you're in a sticky situation now. Now it comes to the point where, well, everyone's using my team and playing with me. I want to get paid, but can't really pay you like that because it's not in the contract. So there's going to have to be different contracts written and all this stuff. People have to sign their names and all this stuff, write off all these things. And I think it's going to be a hard situation. And also with if there is a prep league, which personally I don't see happening, especially with football. Like I think like NBA has it right in basketball. They have a G League team, and like MLB has minor league teams connect to that team. Until NFL does something like that, it's always competing and butting heads, and we're fighting for ratings. And that's why guys lose opportunity. That's why the AAF fell. That's why XFL fell. twice. That's why all these other leagues fall. Arena Football League fell. And all these leagues fall and fail because they're competing. There's not really a farm league. If NFL, especially for football, they have like a farm league with, say, the Minnesota Vikings has 2 minor league teams where you can actually pick guys up. Now you have more opportunity to play. But I feel like personally, until that happens, we're going to be in the same cycle forever until NFL gets on board.
Pablo, let me
What-
ask you.
Oh, but before we do that, 2 things I want to say with the game. I mean, they said that they're not gonna like use player likeness until later on, that it'll be discussed. But you know, there's gonna be the people who make the rosters with the guys' names and
Mhm.
everything. And
Mhm.
as much as these players are gonna want to argue about it, they're gonna be the first ones in lines to get the link to download it and play as themselves. And then Tristan and I talked about that with when we talked about the minor league stuff. I asked him, can you build a better system than what the NCAA has right now in terms of player development in a short amount of time? And I couldn't think of anything. I don't know if you guys can. I don't know if you thought about that. So this is my question to you guys. Is there a possibility for another system in place to develop players from high school to the pros that you could put in now that would work as well as the NCAA?
So what do you mean by development? Like athletically, professionally, what do you mean by that?
Athletically, like putting them, what the way I see the NCAA, which you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is a way to develop these guys in the hopes of giving them a chance at the professionals. So it's the same as grooming someone for a job. They're taking that internship time and then going to do the job interview, you know, the draft process and all that. Is there a better system in place that you can put in now to develop these high school guys, to find and develop these high school guys and then get them to the pros?
I say it's tough to do that unless you have more leagues where guys can go. Because we can try to do our own thing, but the problem at the end of the day still remains 1% make it. So there's no matter how prepared I get you, if there's only one place to go, it's still going to be the same percentage wise. But if we can create more leagues and like more minor league things, it's easier to develop a program where people can go because there's more opportunities and chances. But for instance, if it's just the NFL, then I can do whatever I want, but there's still that 1% chance you'll make it. I can only do but so much until there's more options for you to go. That's what I feel.
Yeah, to Mike's point, it's like any other career field that's oversaturated. You know, there's too many eligible, able-bodied people that are good enough for it, but there's not enough positions. There's just not. There's just not enough. Like, I mean, we talked about this our episode with Mac. On a football team, there can be up to almost 130 guys on one team. In Division One level, there's 128, 129 schools.
Yeah.
Then there's D1 AA, there's D2, there's 3, JUCO, NAIA. There's only, 32 NFL teams?
Mm-hmm.
53 man
53 roster spots.
So, like, even if we went, let's just break this down. Like, let's just use the state of Florida. You have the Jags, you have the Bucks, and you have the Dolphins, right? Let's just make it easy. 150 spots a year. Okay. UCF by itself almost has the same amount of people. And there's UCF, UF, USF, Florida State,
FSU,
Miami, FIU, FAU, Warner,
UWF.
WF, Ave Maria, Bethune, fam.
Fam.
Like, there's just in the state, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just not enough spots. But one thought I had that I think maybe could, I don't think this would ever happen, but just an idea, like how MLB and NBA have like farm leagues. If you just totally decentralize NCAA, remove it, and now UCF, USF are the farm leagues for the Tampa Bay Bucks, Florida State, FAM, Bethune, etc. Maybe even some like Southern Georgia schools feed the Jaguars in Miami, and all the other NFL teams. They have 5 colleges, 5 programs where they can pull from. And based on that, they go up or down. But then that just gets complicated because then it's like you might have a 30-year-old playing against a 16-year-old or 17-year-old kid.
See, the thing becomes, and they used to do this long time ago, where they had territory drafts, where if a guy lived X amount of distance away from you, you could draft him. And obviously, these pro drafts come about because they want to level the playing field. They don't want the guys with all the money to get all the best guys and just corner the market. And the point I want to make with this is there are big D1 schools, the Power Fives, but does every player on a Power Five roster get drafted?
No.
You have your D2s, you have D3 guys who come out of nowhere. The D2 and D3 guys are paying school out of pocket. If you're talented, they'll find you. Whatever decision you make has to be the best for you. And, it may not be the best system, but sometimes it ends up working out for guys. And you won't hear the D2 and D3 guys talking about naming rights or anything like that. So sometimes, you just got to do what you have to do, the best decision for you. And if you're talented enough, they'll find you.
Right. And I think this is what makes it tough, especially for me, is that everything we're talking about right now is almost we're still feeding the beast. So what I mean by that, we're talking about making sure they get money, make sure they go to the league, all this stuff. But when they're out, then what? The cycle continues. Well, we focus on Walk On Nations, make sure you develop as a person. So when that cycle does end and you're pulled out the system, because you will be pulled out the system, whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. How can you capitalize on what you've done in college and in the pros to be successful out of this? We can talk about farm leagues. We can talk about whatever we want, how to get to the NFL, whatever. Great. That's great. You made it there. After you leave, then what? We didn't teach you anything about networking. We didn't teach you anything about time management. We didn't teach you anything about being someone outside of an athlete. And now we just fed more into the beast, and the cycle continues and it gets worse and worse and worse. I think that's where the huge disconnect is. Everyone's trying to figure out how to get the players money, how to do this. I agree. Players need to get money for sure. They deserve money. But at the same time, us pushing this so much, players are not going to care about the whole professional, personal development side, because why? I'm trying to get money. I don't need all that. That's useless. How am I going to tell an athlete that's say he's making 10 G's a game, like, bro, you need this on the side. For what? I'm rich. I don't need that. I'm getting paid. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. You see more cases and more things popping up on the news, and this cycle continues.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily fix the problem. And outside of sports, in the workforce, let's say you're in the business field, and then your firm goes bankrupt, you lose your job. Do you just stop and be like, oh well, I'm just going to keep working until they open back up? No, you're going to get a job. You're going to do something else. You're going to use your other skills to do maybe pharmaceuticals, maybe culinary, maybe you're going to be a trainer, maybe you're going to do something else. That I don't feel like that mindset transfers to athletes. Like I'm an athlete, I'm a football player. I didn't make the NFL. So I'm just going to keep working. I'm going to keep working, which I can respect the work ethic, right? The mentality you're going to work for what you get, and then you deserve it, right? That's great, but there's a whole lot of other opportunities out there for you. But it's nothing.
One track minded.